Okay, here we go. Ignore that. Let's make that 18 now. This is my business planning now for 18. And you see it dates it automatically for you as to when you're looking at it. So, this does it a little bit differently because what it does is it actually grosses up your cost of sales. I'm going to take it back as we were using to, what did we work, 72,000?
Yep. That's 720,000.
Oops, sorry. There. So if that were your goal, and I'll tell you, these cost of sales and these operating expenses are coming out of surveys from a lot of, now most of them are from NAR, because we don't have as much statistical data that NAR tends to flush out. But that gives you a cost of sales. So if you don't know what your cost of sales and what your operating expenses are, if you use that, that will give you, now you can look at them and say, well, I can cut them down, I can, you know, and we'll get down into the expense model here where you can rejig whatever you want and make these numbers. So you can look at it and say, well, my cost of sales isn't that much. My operating expenses aren't that much, so we can whittle that down. Oh, I need to, where did I get that? And we'll figure it out as we go along. Okay, I want to take that number back though, so that, well, we'll work with what we got. So if you get 72,000, which we know is going to cover overall your expenses, these may be a little bit different, but just to use it, we'll carry on with this. So if we're looking at making 167,000 in gross commission income, and I'll save this, I'll send this one to you exactly the way it is, okay? And if our revenue from sellers is 60%, then we need 100,000 and change, and buyers is 40%, then we need 67,000, okay? Let's change that though. Because as I say, that would be one heck of a selling agent. Let's put that to 40 and 60, which is just going to reverse that number. Okay, that's probably a little bit more true to form. Okay, so 40% are coming and 60% are coming this way. That gives you the, what's my total commission I need to make from buyers and from sellers. If it's 45, let's do 45. And 55, again, it'll change it for you. So whatever your numbers are, if you know, okay, this year, let's see, I did 12 deals and 5 of them were from listings and 7 were from purchases, work out the percentage and plug it in, okay? Your commission, what is your commission rate? If you don't know, go back over the past year and say, okay, add it up. Oh, this guy only gave me 2 1/4 and I didn't enforce the buyer agency agreement for the extra 0.25%, all sorts of things like that, which by the way, has anybody taken and had a buyer agency agreement signed for a certain percentage and the listing brokerage is not offering that and you end up swallowing, you know, as I say, a 1/4 point? If I've got a buyer agency agreement signed at 2.5 and they're only offering me 2 1/4, I'm probably not going to risk the relationship by going back to the buyer and saying, hey buyer, you still owe me a 1/4%. Probably not a good idea if you want to have any referral business on that. But here's the thing. If you've ever done that, do you just not mention it? Why? Listen, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I just want you to know, the one that we're purchasing here, they're only offering to pay me 2 1/4% rather than the 2.5% that I usually make. But listen, I value our relationship so much more. Consider it your housewarming present if you like, but I'm not going to charge you the difference. Okay. Why give away something for nothing? If you're going to give it to them, let them know you're giving it to them because they're not going to see it otherwise. get something out of it. Goodwill, relationship. They say, isn't that nice? Thank you so much. And then what do we say next? After they say thank you so much, what do we say? One of these things. Oh, it's nothing. Don't mention it. Don't think of it. Wrong. Thank you for noticing and thank you for appreciating it. Maybe you could make it back for me on a referral or something like that. Now, you don't have to convert it into cash all the time. But never tell anybody. When you do something for somebody, do not tell them not to think about it or mention it. They won't. Great opportunity to ask for a referral and you just gave it away. Thank you for noticing. Yes, I really value our relationship. I value my relationship with clients. So if you know of anybody else that would like a relationship like that with a real estate agent that cares, have them give me a call. I may have given up 0.25%, but I'm going to get something out of it. Not just let it slide on by. But anyway, back to this. So we know that if we're in a marketplace where, and I will tell you, there are marketplaces now that are 2%. You go east of the 115 out towards Coburg and that, everything out there is 2%. A lot of stuff up in Markham's 2.25. Tends to be the way the market's going. I disagree with it, but they don't care. So maybe a couple of times I've had to take less for the seller because they wanted a deal for buying from me or whatever it is. So maybe it worked out to 2.4. Maybe because of dealing in places where sometimes I only get 2.25, my commission is 2.3. Okay? Because I want these numbers to be realistic, these numbers need to be. I have to adapt to that. Or maybe you say, I don't take any listings under 3%. That's it. That's the way it is. And I stick to my guns. I don't care if they buy from me. Don't care if they sell. I charge 3%. Good for you. Rock it. Then you put that at 3%. Because it will change all the numbers here. These are the total volume of properties that you need to sell. So right now, if I were to get 3%, gee, I only need to sell $2.5 million worth of housing. Let's put it back to 2.5 or 2.4 or something. I do know agents that don't take anything less than 3%. But, so, here we are. So, to get this number from my sellers and my buyers, I need to sell 3 million in listings and 4 million in buyers. And I will earn that based on these commission rates. Okay, it just keeps flowing up. You can always step back and go, yeah, but here it goes. Okay? Average sale price. Well, obviously this is way out of whack. Okay, what's an average sale price for your area?
750. 750.
750. Okay. That's the listing price, listing sale? Okay. What's the average buying price? Maybe 650?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, yeah.
Okay, doesn't matter, you plug in these, you're gonna have the ability to change this for yourself, okay? So, if I do that, what that now tells me, because it breaks it down, is I need 4 listings to sell. Based on this price, 4 times this equals this. 6 times this equals this. So I now know I gotta do 10 deals next year to make $167,000 based on these figures. You say, well, that's not right. Well, then your figures are different. This is simple math. The program does it for me. So I need 10 deals to make $167,000. Average commission is about $16,000 to $17,000 then, right? Which sounds about right. Okay. Now, then we got to look and say, this is the same thing we did on the piece of paper. Okay, but how many times do I get a listing that it doesn't sell? And you've got to do that math and say, okay, out of 10, 7 of them sell. Well, that's 70%. And you plug it in here. Out of 10, only 6 sell. Okay, well, that's 60%. We'll go on the side of conservative. And when I have a buyer agency agreement signed, how many of my buyers buy? And I would argue that's probably a little bit higher, because once they've committed to buying with you, unless their circumstances change, you know, okay, we were gonna get married, we had a fight last night, we're not getting married anymore, we can't buy a house, or I lost my job, or the stress test kicked us out of the marketplace. So that number may drop. Let's say it drops. Why? Because I'd rather be conservative on this part of things. When you set your goals, I want you set high. When you set this, I want you to be conservative. Okay? So if only 60%, let's say 70% of my buyers, so 1 out of 10 is going to get knocked out by the stress test in this instance. Okay, it means that I needed to take an extra buyer agency agreement because this number dropped. So I've got 16 deals or contracts that I need to write so that I can get 10 sold. Now, we get back to that thing of how many appointments do you have with your buyer or with your seller to determine how many appointments you've got to be making. And here's the deal. How does this relate? You're going to see in a minute. So let's say that I meet with a buyer and I'm not average. 75% of the time I get the deal. Okay? That wasn't enough to change the number there. And let's say over here with the buyers, well, let's leave it there, 65%. So I may meet with, 10 buyers and 6 to 7 of them are going to sign a buyer agency agreement with me. That's what that's saying, okay? So I need to have 23 appointments to get my 16 listings, buyer listings and seller listings, to get my 10 transactions at these prices, at those commission rates, to give me my $167,000 a year. Anybody lost it all so far? Okay, that's why I like this, it steps it through. It's just, okay, yeah. Next thing I have to look, how many weeks am I gonna work? Well, we just worked it out, I only wanna work 45 next year. So I'm gonna put it at 45. Good. What does that do? That tells us how many appointments we need each week. Which tells us that on the average month, you need only 0.02 and 0.03 appointments per week. This is the part where everybody goes, oh, I can up my numbers then. Here's the reality. Do you make those appointments every week? And are they with qualified people that are actually looking to buy or sell? It's simple. But don't confuse simple with easy. This is every single month. You've got to get those appointments. And the harder part is how many leads do you need to get to that number, which is where it goes further. And it is on the paper version as well, but I thought we'd switch over and do it here. So I need these closed 10 transactions. And then you have to say, okay, how many people do I need to deal with to be able to do this? Okay? And there's formulas within the program that you can change, but generally, if you have a database of 62 people that you are in relationship with constantly, I don't mean your phone book that you call them once every year or two. I mean systematically market to them regularly, at least every 3 weeks. Then these numbers start to play. Okay? I have not met database is people that you have not met. Isn't that convenient calling it that? What would that be?
Facebook? Facebook?
No, Facebook tends to drift into here if you're using it properly.
Okay.
If you're using it properly. We can talk a bit about that too. This is something like a farm.
Oh, okay.
Okay? You've never met these people and you start marketing to them. okay, on a consistent basis. But because they haven't met you at the time that you start, have not met. What'll happen, you hope, if you're doing proper marketing, is they start putting their hands up, and then you meet with them, and then they become met, and this grows. Okay? So this starts to grow. And you can do it one way or the other. It doesn't matter. You can say, okay, I'm going to focus on the 100 people that I know, and which is a little bit higher than this, but that's not a bad thing. So I'm going to focus on those people. That's how I'm going to conduct my business. That's okay. Or you could say, I just came into town. I don't know anybody. Well, okay, there's your target to get started. I will tell you, this number, this way of working with people you don't know, is a lot longer time cycle. In fact, and if we talk about farming and doing a session on farming, and I'm happy to do that. In fact, people that I coach with, we've already kind of gone over a little bit of farming because they wanted to start doing some lead gen, and I said, okay, well, pick a farm before you just randomly start calling anywhere or door knocking anywhere. You're just wasting your time, okay? But when you're dealing in farming, you're looking at the first 7 to 8 contacts. They don't even see you. It takes at least 8 connections before you say, hey, I've seen this person before. Okay, Hobbs Herder proved that. There's a marketing company down in the States that do all the fancy stuff for the big agents. They actually did something, and they came up with a survey. Interesting survey. They divided up a city into bite-sized pieces, and then they went and called the whole city, or the whole area that they were marketing to. And they just quick phone. Hi, listen, yeah, we're Hobbs Herder. We're not a real estate company. We're not trying to list your house or sell it. But if you were going to sell, can we ask you 2 questions? If you're going to sell or put your house on the market today, do you know what company you would be talking to? And do you know a specific agent that you would talk to? That's all they did. Thanks for your time. They did the whole area. They got all their results. And then they divided up the city into the same size chunks. And in each area, they did a different marketing plan. So in one area, they had 5 pieces of mail-outs in 5 weeks, 5 in 10 weeks, 5 in 15 weeks, 5 in 20. And here they did 6 and 7 and 8, right across in different configurations. And after it was all done, they phoned the same people back and said, hi, it's Hobbs Herder again. And no, we're not trying to sell your house. So just 2 quick questions. If you knew, if you were thinking about putting your house on the market today, do you know what company you would use? And do you have a specific agent that you would use? Interestingly, that most of the people now named the same company and the same agent, but they did it in varying degrees based on how much marketing they were given. Okay. The interesting part was that the company and the agent were fictitious and did not exist. There was no whatever company they used, and there was no agent. The reason they phoned first was to find out what companies are there and what agents' names are we going to see, because we've got to make one up that doesn't relate to any of them so no one can confuse it. Okay? But then they started marketing in all these different patterns, and what they found was the 8x8 was the most efficient. Does not mean it was the most effective. Be careful when we use words, but we understand exactly what we're talking. 8x8 was the most efficient, meaning that there was a better result in 8 pieces in 8 weeks than there was in 8x10 or 8x5. 8x8 was kind of the sweet spot. Now, was 10x10 better? Probably, but not 20% better, and you were spending 20% more money to get it. So it said, what's the most efficient? So in farming, when I teach farming, my first thing I say is, okay, well, I'm going to 8x8 my whole farm first, because I don't want to wait 8 months before they realize who the heck I am.
Can you repeat it? 8x8 means that in 8 weeks, how you?
Yeah, if I'm going to start a farm, the first 8 weeks they're going to see me in some form or another every week.
Oh,
Once a week.
Once a week. Why? Because if I don't do it that way, it's going to take me 8 months before they ever go, I've seen you before. I'd rather they figure that out real quick. And then once you've done 8 by 8, then yes, you have to have at least one contact per month of some form. Direct mail, ad mail, something. And then fill that in with just sold, just listed, special newsletter, whatever you're gonna do. But your base, your very, very basic program has to start there. So in the first 14 months, you're gonna make 20 touches because the 8 and then 12 more, okay? Anyway, we can talk about that. That's a session for another day. But what we need to do is realize that the people that know you, love you and trust you are 10 times to 12 times more likely to do business with you. That's why the discrepancy. So if you've got a large database of people that you're in constant communication with, I'll be honest with you, that's always my primary focus. Someone will say, oh, well, are you going to, not if I haven't talked to everybody in my database. I have client events. Why? Because it gives me an opportunity to see a great multitude of them at the same time. So Santa Photo Day is December the 3rd. I hire half of a local restaurant. I'm not Santa that day, although I am many other days, but I have a client who loves doing it, borrows my Santa suit, and goes and takes pictures with the kids. I pay for a buffet, ask them to bring toys for, donation to charity. I focus on older kids because they don't get anything at Christmas, because that's not what people give. They always give the latest Barbie doll or cuddly little soft toy, and that doesn't help a 15-year-old. So I get them basketballs and soccer balls and hockey sticks and movie passes and stuff like that. But you can choose, or you can say, well, listen, I need 62. I really only have 30 people that I'm close to and can rely on. So you can put that in and go, okay, my actual HaveMet database is, say, only 34 people. Okay? That means that, and let's say my HaveNot database, where are we here? Oh, marketing response ratio. Okay? So you can look at this and say, how many contacts does it take to get from people you don't know? How many contacts do you have to put out before you get it? It used to be 50 to 1, but with all the junk now that we have, I would argue that it's more 75 to 1. And your mileage may vary. You may say, oh no, I get that, at 65 to 1, whatever. But again, it's usually more about 75 contacts out there before you get a response, whatever that may be. And that's an average, because depending on what you're using as a contact, that will change. If it's just cold calling, I would argue it's over 100 to 1. You call and talk to 100 dials, talk to 100 people. On average, from what I'm talking to, when I'm talking to people that are cold calling, they're finding it's about 100 to 1. That they know if they make 100 calls every day, on the average day, they're going to get a lead. Okay. Yes, they have a lot of people tell them to, but on average. So if you said, well, no, I'm cold calling, I might crank that up to 100. Say I'm door knocking, yeah, that's probably more accurate. I think you get a better response door knocking. And I'm not saying that door knocking is better. It's better for some people. It's worse for others. But it's probably more one-on-one efficient. Now the downside is it takes a lot longer. That's why a lot of people like cold calling. They can just do lead generation and burn it. As long as you don't mind being called a lot of bad names and stuff like that. Some people are, don't call me, please. I'm on the do not call list. We don't even answer the phone anymore. But, as I say, if you like doing it, and people do, then it's a great way to lead generate. You cover more ground. Door knocking takes more time. I find it more effective, but I'd rather be face-to-face with somebody. And I'm a lot kinder to somebody that shows up on my door, as long as you are not a gas marketer. I'm not nice to those people. But if you're not a gas marketer, I'll chat with you. I'll listen to you. I don't talk to people on the phone that use my phone against me. That's just my attitude. So as I say, each is different, okay? But using an equation of 75 to 1, because I changed this database from 0 to 34, this one also changes. So I can mix my business. I can say, well, I got about 34 or 35 people right now that I can talk to and talk real estate with and stay in touch with. Then you probably need another 350 people that you haven't met yet, that you've got to systematically market to. And you may say, hey, well, okay, I'm just going to take this little bundle of houses that are around this immediate area. It's about 350, 400 houses, and I'm going to market to them repeatedly. That should give you your numbers. It will take longer, though, because they don't know you. You have to build trust. Okay? Great book, The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey Jr. Not the senior, the junior. Great book. Okay? That's one you can put on your book list if you haven't already. Speed of Trust. Okay? It talks about trust in a very, very different way. It talks about trust in time and talks about trust in dollars and what it means. So, great book. So anyway, and this actually, as I showed you, goes on and on and on. You can run an entire business off of this spreadsheet, but I rarely go past these 2 pages. I want to know, what have I got to do? How many leads do I have to generate? How many appointments I have to make to get how many contracts signed, to get how many deals sold so that I can make my money. This tells me that, okay? I'm going to get I'll email it to Addy, and he will email it out to everybody, so that you can use it and make it your own. Somebody could be sitting here and saying 167,000, boy, that would be an off year for me. That's fine. Then go up here and say, well, listen, I want to make 500,000. Okay, well, let's just stick a 3 in front of that. That'll probably get us about there. Oh, way up, okay. How about 2? Depending on your expenses. That's why I say the other thing you try and do is whittle down your expenses. So here, we need to make 632 to net 272 if those are expenses. And again, cost of sales. They're going to vary depending on how you do your business. If you're somebody that does a lot of agent referrals, your cost of sales is going to be way up. Why? Because you're spending 25% on every deal. Now, there's a lesson in that though too. How many of you jump every time someone says, I got a referral for you? I'm here. What are you paying for when you get a referral?
25 at least.
Well, what are you paying for? We know what you're paying. What are you paying for?
What about Vigo?
The relationship. I get people all the time say, hey Rick, I got a referral for you. I don't say, great, what is it? My first question is, okay, tell me where it came from. What's the relationship? I'm buying something. You're asking me to work for 75 cents on the dollar and give you 25%. Now if you tell me, oh, well, they came to our internet site and we don't work in your side of the city. I do Durham region and just West Hill and into Scarborough. So if you don't want to go there, call me. I'm happy to take your referrals. But here's the thing. If it's an internet lead, what are the percentages of it going to fruition?
1 in 20.
1 in 20. That's 5%. I bet that's high.
Yeah.
I would say more likely 2 to 3%. Is it likely to pay off? You're paying 25% for it. You're paying 10 times what it's worth. Which is one of the reasons why you want to do your own lead generation. Never buy leads. Never, ever, 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 ever. You're never going to make money buying leads from a company. Okay? You're going to get a lot of crap. You're going to pay a lot of money for it, and they only pay off about 3% of the time. Okay? Now, you phone me up and say, oh, well, this is my sister's best friend. Awesome, I'm in. Happy to give you 25, might even give you more. Because the relationship is there. You're not going to go in there, you're probably not going in against other agents, and you're not going to have to really as much sell yourself because that's why the person's referring to you. They're saying, no, don't just call anybody. I've got a great agent for you in Mississauga. And then they make that connection. They do that bridge building for you if they're any kind of a good agent. Because they want it to succeed. I don't want people just throwing the crap at me. and say, oh, if it happens, if I do 97% of the work and it happens to work out, I'm going to give you 25%? No, I don't have time for that. I can generate enough business myself and not pay that, so again, that factors in. But if that's how you do your business, that's okay, but your cost of sales is gonna be way up because you're starting at 25% for each and every deal. And then you've gotta pay to market the home. That's why referral companies, I haven't heard a lot about them lately. Don't seem to be as active as they were. I wouldn't take a referral, I don't take referrals from referral companies. They want 35% and they don't do anything for me. Sorry, 35 cents on the dollar, I'm not making any profit. I don't work for free. That's just my choice. Your mileage may vary. If you can make a living, great, super. But here's the thing, if I'm gonna spend 35% to Brookfield or whoever, PHH, whatever, whoever they are, how much left do I have to market for the home? I already told you, I spend on average, $1,100 for every listing that I launch. And if it doesn't sell, I don't get it back. So I gotta compensate for that. I'm not gonna hand away 35,000 or 35% and then hand away, and then hand away. I'm working for nothing. So again, a little bit of off topic, but keep that in mind when you're doing your budgeting. Now, some agents make a huge business out of it, and that's great. They go to every convention, they get a booth, they take referrals, they have materials, they have pens and all sorts of great, wonderful tools. I got an umbrella in Winnipeg, which actually I didn't need in Winnipeg, but I got one, it was nice. It was actually, I needed it in Whistler when I was there the year before. But they had all sorts of stuff with their name all over it, and they're looking for referrals, and that's great. But they specialize in it, that's all they do. But they're working at 75 cents on the dollar, so I hope their other expenses are really, really rock bottom, because they're giving away too much money, okay? So these you can pare down. Easiest thing to do is phone your cell phone company and ask them what your buyout is. You go, why? Why? What do you need to know that for? I did that to Telus. Bell gave me a really good offer. Telus gave me a better one. Why they didn't give it before I asked, I don't know, but that pared my expenses down. Every time I turn around, we'll pare them down, okay? Any questions on that? You are gonna have that. Once you get the number that you need every month, you can plug that in and start playing with that, okay? And if you wanna go further, you can go further. This will allow you to do your budgeting. This will allow you to literally go through your monthly goals. You can actually go right into whether or not you are hiring staff, and if you're gonna build a team, this is the whole model. Everything's all here, okay? I thank my buddy Zan Moko, who put this all together.